This podcast episode might not be your cosmic cup of brew if you're a skeptic, close minded, or firmly tethered to the preconceived notions. If shaking up those set ideas isn't your thing, or if exploring fresh perspectives and ideas doesn't appeal to you, this is definitely not the episode for you. If your ego's on overdrive and the mere mention of exploring beyond the tangible realms makes you raise an eyebrow, we might be venturing into uncharted territories for you. You will want to skip this one. Welcome to the Inner Golden Hour podcast, where dreams take flight, mind, body, and soul get a serious holistic upgrade, and personal evolution transforms into a shared spiritual adventure. Consider this your dedicated sanctuary for exploration, self-discovery, unfiltered truths, diverse perspectives, and some much-needed heart-to-heart real talk. Hi, I'm your host Kusum. I'm a mindset and manifestation life and business coach. Think of me as that best friend you never knew you needed. The one unafraid to call out your BS, deliver a dose of tough love, and hit you with some truth bombs. This podcast is more than just a series of episodes. It's a transformative experience guiding you to dig into your truths, ditch those old limiting beliefs, and fully embrace the real authentic you. It's an invitation to align your mind, body, heart, and soul, to dream big, to explore what truly lights you up, and to manifest a reality that surpasses your wildest imagination. Envision this space as the magical golden hour when everything radiates with a breathtaking glow, revealing the depths of your inner world. Now, come along and immerse yourself in a perpetual flow of inspiration, insights, and massive transformation across all areas of your life. Let's explore the extraordinary, one enlightening episode at a time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Inner Golden Hour podcast. Today, we are going to pick up right where we left off on the previous episode by diving deep into the cosmic world of the mystic brew ayahuasca. That's the sacred psychedelic plant medicine from the heart of the Amazon. And if you caught my last episode, that's episode number 2, then I bet that you're quite eager to hear all about my wild ayahuasca adventures. And trust me, I'm just as eager to share all about it with you. But before we dive into the nitty-gritty and the juicy details of my ayahuasca ceremony experiences, I would love to first give you all a lowdown on what ayahuasca even is, because I'm pretty sure that there's quite a few of you who might not know what ayahuasca is or what psychedelics are. So I want to first share some insight about that, as well as debunk some of the myths, the misconceptions, and the judgments that swirl around this ancient plant medicine. And that's super important for me to do because my goal is to ensure that when you listen to my ayahuasca journey, you can actually join me with an open mind and an open heart and a deeper understanding of this plant medicine and its profound significance. And this way, the shared experiences and the insights in this episode can resonate with you in the most meaningful and in a much more deeper way. Sound good? Cool. And before we even dive into the wild world of ayahuasca, let's actually lay down some ground rules now, shall we? First up, this podcast episode might not be your cosmic cup of brew if you're a skeptic, close-minded, or firmly tethered to the preconceived notions. If shaking up those set ideas isn't your thing, or if exploring fresh perspectives and ideas doesn't appeal to you, this is definitely not the episode for you. If your ego's on overdrive and the mere mention of exploring beyond the tangible realms makes you raise an eyebrow, we might be venturing into uncharted territories for you. So if the idea of stepping beyond everyday reality might seem too wild for your taste, and if you're dead set on the belief that science is the universe's only language and anything beyond logic is mere hogwash, you will want to skip this one. And if you're all talk and no walk, that's no real experiences to back up your talk, or not ready to question, explore, and peek beyond the doors of your limited experiences and perceptions, then this episode, and likely this podcast itself, will definitely not align with your views. Now, on the flip side, if you're not too caught up in your ego and not stuck in rigid ways of thinking, and if you've ever felt there's more to this reality than that meets the eye, that the uncharted territories of consciousness are worth a journey, then you're in the right place. If you thrive on curiosity and if you are happy to let your mind dance with the unknown and the unseen and resonate with the idea that a universe of knowledge awaits to be uncovered beyond our current understanding, far more than our small human minds can even comprehend, then welcome aboard. And if you aren't afraid to acknowledge that science hasn't unraveled all the mysteries of the universe, and you're open and eager to explore the depths of consciousness that lie outside our present comprehension, then this and the upcoming episodes are tailor made for you. I mean, let's face it, right? We have only just begun to scratch the surface of the vast cosmic knowledge that's out there. Our scientific understanding is just a tiny drop in an infinite ocean of cosmic wisdom. So it's about time that we expand our minds and embrace the possibility that there's so much more out there than we can even imagine. So if you're ready to break free from the shackles of conventional thinking and explore the unknown and the unseen, then buckle up and get ready to explore the vast cosmic knowledge that awaits us beyond the everyday living. On that note, let's roll with this mind expanding journey. Are you ready? Alright, then let's go. So, first up, for those who are brand new to this world of psychedelics, let's actually talk about what they are even before we start diving deep into the subject matter. Basically, psychedelics are often referred to as mind altering or hallucinogenic substances that are capable of inducing certain kind of profound alterations to our perceptions, to our mood, and our consciousness as well. So, substances such as LSD, ayahuasca, magic mushrooms, DMT, etc., you might have heard of some of these names. So, these substances have a rich history of traditional use across various cultures for spiritual, therapeutic, and ceremonial purposes, as they can lead to vivid sensory experiences, expanded awareness, and in some cases, they even say it creates a deep sense of interconnectedness. And also, get this, research into their potential therapeutic benefits, particularly in mental health treatment, has gained a lot of traction over the recent years, sparking renewed interest in being able to understand the complexities and the fascinating realms of psychedelics. In that sense, you could think of psychedelics as being able to dive into a whole new dimension of experience. Now that you have a slightly better understanding of what psychedelics are, let's start by understanding the very essence of this particular psychedelic, that's ayahuasca. And the way I like to look at ayahuasca and ayahuasca ceremonies is that it's truly a journey of the mind and the spirit. Now, if you're thinking, what is ayahuasca? Don't worry, I'm here to explain all about it. So, ayahuasca has its roots in the South American Quechua language and it holds a profound significance which is also reflected in its name. Ayahuasca means wine of the soul or wine with the soul. What a profound meaning! And this psychedelic sacred plant medicine that originates in the Amazon rainforest has been used for centuries by indigenous Amazonian communities for spiritual and healing purposes. Now, this powerful visionary brew is prepared by combining two different kinds of plants. That's the ayahuasca vine and the chacruna leaves. And that's what results in a potent mixture which is known for its hallucinogenic properties containing DMT. And that's the powerful psychedelic compound. And in Amazonian cultures, DMT is seen as a gateway to the spirit world, and the psychedelic experiences induced by ayahuasca are interpreted as journeys into the spirit realm. Now, I mess this up every single time I try to pronounce the name, so I'm going to give this one more time. One more try. DMT stands for, Okay, I literally had to go on Google and have Google pronounce that name for me. So it's dimethyltryptamine. All right, got it. That's what DMT is. So, it's no surprise that there's so much global buzz around these ayahuasca ceremonies, especially given their potential for all of the life altering experiences. So, people from various backgrounds, different kinds of belief systems, diverse experiences, they're all drawn to the deep spiritual insights to be able to journey into the subconscious mind and for all of the profound healing that's offered by ayahuasca. You can think of it as a wild exploration that leads to a heightened self awareness, deepened connection with nature, and resolution of any past traumas. What a golden opportunity to be able to confront all that's unresolved within us as humans that we carry from long before we were even born. And we'll get into the details of all of that as well as I start sharing about my own ayahuasca experience. And these ayahuasca ceremonies are held across the world, but more often in countries like Costa Rica, Peru, Brazil, and Ecuador. While the traditional way of conducting these ayahuasca ceremonies happen in Amazon villages, there's also dedicated five-star retreat centers where these ceremonies are held. And whether it's in the Amazon villages or at the retreat centers, they're always guided by experienced shamans and facilitators who play a vital role to not only ensure safety for those that are participating in the ceremonies, but also to be able to provide a supportive environment because there's so much that comes up during these ceremonies, and that support and that guidance is so crucial for every single individual who's sitting in the ceremony. So the shamans and the facilitators play a huge role in all of this. And what are these ceremonies even? So think of ayahuasca ceremonies as sacred rituals. Think of them as these gatherings where all of the participants come together in a sacred ceremonial space, and there's these shamans and facilitators who are guiding the whole experience. These ceremonies are often held at night, and that creates a setting that's perfect for deep thinking and introspection. And the ceremony itself involves drinking the ayahuasca brew, and as the effects of the brew kicks in, participants experience all kinds of stuff, right? There's so much that happens, and we call that a journey. They experience different kind of journeys where they might see vivid visions or feel deep thoughts and also have intense emotional releases. And all of this happens as a result of some kind of profound connection to the spiritual realm. The way I see it is that these ceremonies are kind of an initiation of opportunities for self discovery, healing, and spiritual growth for all of us. And there's also this sense of reverence in the air during the ceremony, and even before and after as well, but especially during the ceremony, where the participants often set intentions before the ceremony begins for what they want to gain from the experience. So it's not just a ritual, but it's a transformative adventure into the depths of one's soul. Now, while the effects of the brew last a few good hours after you've consumed the brew, which gives us plenty of time for some serious reflection, introspection, self discovery, exploration, etc., 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 the transformative journey extends beyond the ceremony itself and the few days after, because a lot of the participants also report long lasting effects on physical, psychological, and spiritual levels. And I also personally believe that the effects of the brew last a lifetime, right? Because once you sit in ceremony with ayahuasca, it's a lifelong thing that you bring with you. And just because it's not in your physical system anymore doesn't mean it's not in you anymore. Again, we'll dive into the depths of that in just a little bit, or maybe in the upcoming episodes rather. And that's exactly why the ayahuasca community is also so big on integration, because there's so many insights and so many lessons that come through for all of us during the ceremony. But if you leave that at the ceremony and don't make it an integral part of your everyday life, then what even is the point of going through such ceremonies, right? So you want to make sure that you integrate the lessons and the deep insights that have come up for each of us during the ceremony, and you want to bring that to your everyday life. Now, as ayahuasca has also become this global sensation, it's so important to remember that ayahuasca is not some party drug, but it's a deeply spiritual practice that's rooted in indigenous wisdom. So, showing respect for the plant, the ceremony, the culture, and the guidance of experienced shamans are actually the foundations to maintain the authenticity and the sacredness of ayahuasca rituals. So, if you've ever thought of trying ayahuasca, or if you're now thinking that you would like to one day try ayahuasca, I request that you please approach it with a sense of reverence and be mindful about the practice and the ritual and the ceremony, because this isn't just a cool trend. This isn't some recreational activity, and this is certainly not about getting high or having a crazy experience, as I've heard many people say, "Oh, I just want to get high on ayahuasca and see what that feels like." Please, 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 I request you. This is all about connecting with your spirituality and tapping into the broader consciousness of the universe. So you'll be disrespecting the culture and the tradition and the significance and the sacredness of the plant and the indigenous people if you don't approach this in a mindful, conscious way. So, a request to everybody who wants to partake in the ayahuasca ceremony: let's please keep this practice genuine to honor the deeper purpose of this sacred plant medicine. That's truly my humble request to each of you, those who listen to this and those who want to partake in ayahuasca ceremonies now or in the future. Now, if you're wondering what is spiritual healing even, first of all, there's a lot of misconceptions about being spiritual and being religious, and if they are the same or if they're different, etc., etc., etc. The way I see it, they're both completely different. You can be spiritual and not religious, and you can be religious and not spiritual at all. And I've seen both and I've experienced both. Right now, I look at myself as a spiritual being rather than a religious person. And that's just my view towards it. And we can talk about that in depth in the upcoming episodes. But for right now, let's talk about what spiritual healing is for the purpose of this episode. The word spiritual has its roots in the Latin word. It's called spiritius, which basically means the breath of life. And in this context, when we are talking about the spiritual stuff, we are actually referring to a special kind of energy which goes deep, connecting the divine or universal energy to bring about healing for your mind, body, and spirit. So that's in a sense what the spiritual healing means. Now, I also reference the word shaman. And a shaman is a spiritual healer. And the shamans possess the extraordinary ability to perceive visions. They're able to traverse between the physical and the spiritual realms. And they're also able to transform energy. So they basically serve as a bridge between the visible world and the spirit realm. So these tribal healers are the ones facilitating healing through these spiritual methods during ayahuasca ceremonies. Now, I hope that all of this has given you a better grasp of all things ayahuasca, its essence, and so much more. And before I start sharing all about my own experiences sitting with Mother Ayahuasca in ceremony, it's also very important for me to shed light on some of the myths and misconceptions surrounding ayahuasca and its ceremonies. Because not everyone looks at ayahuasca with an open mind, and there's so many strong opinions against this sacred practice, and some of which I have been subjected to as I came back from the retreat and as I started sharing some of my experiences with people who were curious to hear about what it was all like for me. I myself was met with various kinds of reactions, and several of those are basically rooted in myths surrounding ayahuasca. So I thought I should actually address that first before I even talk about my own experiences with ayahuasca. And some of these might feel like repetitions from what I already shared in this episode in different formats and in different ways, but it's also very important that we emphasize and highlight, and even if it's a repetition, that I mention this one more time, because it takes a couple of repetitions for several people to actually even get the message. So, why not? And with that, first up is that this widespread misconception that ayahuasca is just a recreational drug, a way to get high. But the reality is far from that, and I already touched on this earlier. Ayahuasca is a sacred plant medicine that's deeply rooted in indigenous traditions, and it's used in ceremonial settings for spiritual insights and healing. It's actually a journey and not a joyride to get high. Another popular myth is that ayahuasca is just like alcohol but with more intense effects. Well, that's literally off the mark. Ayahuasca ceremonies are intentional sacred rituals and not a wild night out. It's not about escapism or losing oneself, but it's about delving into the depths and facing inner truths. And that's not what happens when you consume alcohol. You consume alcohol because you don't want to be in the moment, because you feel like consuming alcohol helps you let loose and whatnot. But that's not what actually happens when you consume ayahuasca. And the next myth is that ayahuasca is mistaken to be a dangerous substance that alters the mind in unpredictable ways. But the reality is that, much like everything else, ayahuasca too needs to be administered in a controlled setting under experienced shaman's guidance, and it can't be a reckless journey into the unknown. And the next myth about ayahuasca is that it's a means to induce hallucinations for escapist purposes. Again, that's far from it. And as I already mentioned, ayahuasca ceremonies are about actually facing the fears and your inner truths, where you're exploring the consciousness and receiving guidance. And if you thought by consuming ayahuasca that you could escape anything, you couldn't be further from the truth, because with ayahuasca, there is no escaping anything. No escaping reality, no escaping the present, no escaping the past, no escaping the future, no escaping nothing whatsoever. And the other misconception is around the safety of ayahuasca, which raises a few eyebrows, even, especially because of the impacts it has on mental and physical health. But the reality is that the ayahuasca ceremonies are conducted with careful consideration of participants' health. So, no, it's not a reckless venture. And also, mind you, it's been around for centuries, and this practice has been there in place with responsible administration for thousands and thousands of years. And some people even think that ayahuasca is a shortcut to spiritual enlightenment or a quick fix for life's challenges. So, a little reality check for those who think that way: ayahuasca is not a magic pill. It's a tool for personal transformation that requires ongoing self work. It's not a one and done that you go drink ayahuasca one day or sit through ceremonies for a week and all of your life's problems are resolved and you attain nirvana. Nope, it doesn't work that way. Much like life coaching or therapy or any of that, it's an ongoing journey. And ayahuasca also meets you where you're at. It's not like you have not done any kind of inner work and then you just go take a shot of ayahuasca and there you are, you attain nirvana, and that's not how it works. And if that were the case, everybody would be doing it. It's you who has to show up and it's you who has to do the work. And the more work you've already done on yourself before you even get to ayahuasca, then you see that much more profound, deeper results and transformations. And moving on, there's also a debate about cultural appropriation. And people also argue that non indigenous individuals shouldn't be participating in ayahuasca ceremonies, and if you did that, it might be appropriating culture. But the reality is that as long as long as we are respecting the indigenous cultures and their spiritual practices. And it's the indigenous people who want to share their wisdom and their medicine and their traditions with the rest of the world. So it's only a problem if you are not being mindful, and if you're being disrespectful, and if you're doing this in a way that actually disrespects their culture and their practices. But if you keep that in mind, you shouldn't have to worry about cultural appropriation. And the next one is fear of losing control during an ayahuasca experience. And that can be daunting for several people. I mean, can you imagine not being in control of yourself and whatsoever? But the reality is, much like all of this other inner work, the essence of that lies in you being able to surrender, in you being able to let go, and you being able to get comfortable with the discomfort of not having control, and being okay sitting in that challenge, is being okay with that discomfort and confronting your buried emotions and feelings and whatever else that might come up during the ceremony. And the next one is when skepticism enters the picture, right? Viewing ayahuasca induced spiritual experiences as either subjective or delusional. And this skepticism often stems from a materialistic, well, rather a rational or logical worldview that dismisses the possibility of any kind of transcendent experiences that your mind cannot comprehend. And I will leave it at that because we've already gone ahead and discussed that in depth when we said who this podcast is for and is not for. So that already speaks volumes to this skepticism and this kind of worldview. The next one is the religious or moral objections, which may lead some people to view ayahuasca ceremonies as incompatible with their own belief systems. And this kind of opposition can arise because of the cultural or religious norms which perceive altered states of consciousness as contrary to their own belief systems, against their prescribed moral codes and whatnot. But if you truly dig deeper and look at all of the spiritual scriptures, and everything talks about the unknown and the unseen, and even for that matter. And you know what? I'm likely going to open a can of worms here when I say that, hey, if you're religious and if you believe in God, when have you seen God? And if you are able to believe that God exists, and there you are questioning what ayahuasca ceremonies are even and what these experiences are even, isn't that hypocritical? So I'm just going to leave this one at that. And lastly, there's this unfounded fear that ayahuasca can permanently alter one's mental state. And that comes from lack of awareness that the nature of ayahuasca experiences are temporary. Yes, I did say that once you consume ayahuasca, the impacts of that is lifelong. That doesn't mean that you have the ayahuasca in your physical system for the rest of your life. It's just that if you choose to and if you want to bring the experiences, bring the lessons, and bring the insights from your ayahuasca ceremonies into your life, then you can and you should. But that comes from not this place of feeling like, oh, my mental state is going to be altered. It's just a way of looking at it as, oh, I'm bringing lessons from this experience that actually serves me in the greater context, right? So there's a huge difference between altering your mental state forever and you choosing to make a shift in your mindset. There's a big difference. Wow, I didn't realize there were so many myths and misconceptions around ayahuasca and its ceremonies. But I do want to say that these myths usually pop up when people don't quite get what ayahuasca is all about, right? There's so much misinformation, much like with everything else, floating around on the internet, making rounds, and even your friends and family talking about things without fully grasping the depth of what they're even saying. So please take a moment and explore ayahuasca with an open mind and be curious to understand its cultural and spiritual significance. And that can really go a long way in clearing up all of these misconceptions. And also, another big one to note is that everyone's got their own opinions, right? And they're all shaped by their backgrounds, their beliefs, and their experiences. So it's a whole mix, and we get that. But getting into open, informed conversations can really help us see beyond our own limitations, see beyond our own experiences, see beyond our own traditions and our own cultures. Because there's so much more out in the world that we are not aware of. Yes, I might be very educated, well read. I might know everything about everything in the world, but you've not experienced everything about everything in the world. There's a huge difference between just knowing intellectually and actually living it. And so far, I spoke about the myths and the misconceptions, but also there is much to say about the judgments and the strong opinions that come from people who have no clue whatsoever. And this was my own personal experience, and I think it's so important to highlight this. Now, I also want to preface this by saying my intention here with sharing my experience, this specific scenario, is not to point a finger at somebody or to call someone out. But my intention is to address the underlying issue here, which is bigger than my personal experience. So, this experience was after returning from the ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica, and I was meeting a bunch of friends. Our family was meeting a bunch of friends, and some of my friends were curious to hear about ayahuasca and that experience. So, I was sharing about my experience with some of my friends, while another friend, who by the way was casually sipping wine, boldly interrupted and declared that this whole thing was nonsense, and also confidently claimed that my continuous episodes of vomiting during my ayahuasca ceremonies were merely the result of me ingesting poison. The hypocrisy here, I won't even get there, but you get the point. Again, like I said, my intention is not to call out my friend. I understand and I respect the fact that this friend at this time is incapable of understanding the journey with ayahuasca, because they are not on that path, and whatever they have to say about my journey or my experience and their comments or opinions and judgments about it, honestly, they don't bother me. Neither do they bother me, nor do they mean anything to me, because they don't have any merit to make judgments about my experience or pass around any opinions. While it doesn't bother me, I also have to say that it is just not okay for anybody to dump their limitations on me and my experiences. They're two different things. And calling someone's profound journey, especially when it comes to a journey like ayahuasca, which involves the ancient wisdom of indigenous traditions, nonsense, is not just inappropriate and unacceptable, but it's also downright disrespectful. And it also goes beyond dismissing an individual or dismissing my personal experience. It disrespects the sacredness of the plant and the wisdom that's passed down through generations. So, that is absolutely not okay for me. And what's also super crucial and important to address here is, and the reason I'm even talking about all of this in the first place, is that this incident actually exemplifies a broader issue that I've observed, where people often dismiss ayahuasca without understanding its depths. Because it's not just about my personal experience, it's about the broader narrative surrounding the sacred plant medicine. And if you go on the internet, it's filled with misconceptions and uninformed opinions about this sacred plant medicine. And more often than not, they are from people who have never even experienced a medicine, who have never even sat in ceremony with Mother Ayahuasca. So it becomes extremely essential to address these views, not for personal validation, but it's important to stand up and uphold the sacredness of the plant and also the profound wisdom of the indigenous cultures. So, this truly is a call to respect their deep traditions, to cut through all of the noise and the skepticism that tags along when it is a matter of ayahuasca, when it is a conversation that revolves around the experiences that somebody has had with ayahuasca. So, to those who boldly claim that ayahuasca is nothing more than a toxic escapade, let's actually pause. Let's pause and really grasp the weight of those judgments. It's not that you're questioning an experience, but you're flat out dismissing an entire tradition and the sacred plant that carries profound healing powers and cultural significance. You're flat out dismissing the experiences that people have had with their ceremonies. And that's not okay. You cannot call BS on somebody's personal experience when they have had profound healing, when they have had profound transformations. So, dismissing something as profound as ayahuasca without even understanding its cultural context is not just a lack of knowledge, it's also a blatant disrespect to the richness of the indigenous traditions. And if you haven't delved in the realms of ayahuasca, please do us all a favor and sit this one out. You don't need to have an opinion and pass judgments about every topic under the sun. And if you're not open to expanding your perspective, don't be a part of the conversation. It's uncalled for to dismiss someone else's profound experiences simply because they don't match up with your preconceived notions and limited experiences, especially when we're talking about something that is so sacred to a group of people and their community. So, I want to emphasize, please don't throw around bold judgments about an experience without first hand knowledge and without experiencing it, because then that becomes noise. Well, actually, it's more than noise, because you know what happens? Opinions like this, without any real experience behind them, are not just uninformed, they can also be pretty harmful. They can be harmful to those who've actually gone through such experiences, and to those who believe in such experiences, and to those who facilitate such experiences, and not to forget to the indigenous people themselves. Personally, these comments and these judgments and these opinions have no impact on me, but everyone else is not like that. And when they're still in that place of processing what's come up for them, having to listen to such judgmental opinions, I think can be very detrimental, and people need to be mindful of that. So, yes, no one, absolutely no one has the right to talk about a world they've never even explored. If you've never walked the path, never sat in those sacred ceremonies guided by indigenous wisdom, it's time to recognize the weight of your words. And if you're someone who's on the outside looking in without an ounce of experience, then please hold off on your strong opinions and verdicts. You can't judge a book without ever reading a single page. So don't throw around dismissive comments on something you know absolutely zero about. So let's keep our judgments in check and honor the sacredness of the plant and recognize that some things are beyond our sarcastic commentaries. And it also goes to, just extending somebody the courtesy to be respectful of their beliefs. If they're doing something with their life and if that's not doing any harm to you, then please maintain distance instead of dumping your judgments on somebody else, because it doesn't fit in the box of your worldview. So, yes, these kinds of opinions and judgments and unwanted comments truly bother me. Actually, let me take that back. They don't bother me. They get me all worked up, because it's not okay for people to expect and assume and even kind of dictate that their worldview is the only way to go about life and everything else is nonsense. And that's absolutely not okay for me. And I truly believe that it's the responsibility of people like me who have gone through sacred ceremonies with Mother Ayahuasca to stand up for it, to stand up for the people who do this work, to stand up for the people who might be thinking of sitting in ceremonies themselves, right? So we need to be the ones who are standing up, using our voice, upholding the sacredness of the plant and the indigenous cultures. And for those who've actually experienced the sacred ceremonies and have been subjected to such judgments or opinions, please know that those judgments and opinions are uninitiated and carry no weight. So, cheers to all the open minds, even if you've not experienced ayahuasca ceremonies, but you hold your judgments back, or you don't even have one because you're so open. So, to those who understand that not everything neatly fits into our limited perceptions, People who go through ceremonies like this, they need your support. So thank you for being that person if you are that open-minded person. Because a lot of people who might want to partake in ayahuasca ceremonies or any other psychedelics might hold themselves back exclusively due to the judgments and opinions that they might be subjected to. And on that note, here's a recap of ayahuasca and its journey. Ayahuasca serves as a doorway to your inner self and a deep dive into the spirit realms. Now, ayahuasca isn't just a drink, and it's not about getting a buzz or getting high. It's truly a soulful journey into the depths of your own consciousness. And it's a one of a kind, totally transformative experience that's a culmination of spirituality, community, and ancient wisdom, all rooted way back in indigenous traditions. And diving into an ayahuasca ceremony isn't like popping into a coffee shop. It's a whole process and requires respect, intention, thorough preparation, and getting yourself ready. And whether you do this in the heart of the Amazon or at a 5-star modern retreat, when Mother Ayahuasca calls to you, be open and willing to go on this wild journey of self discovery and spiritual exploration. And if you're ready to let go of the ego and open up your heart and willing to dive into the cosmic unknown, then join me in the upcoming episodes where I will take you on this mind-bending journey where I will share all about my personal ayahuasca ceremonies and ayahuasca journey and what has come up for me as a result of me partaking in the ayahuasca ceremonies. Thank you for joining me on another episode of this podcast. I appreciate your time, your presence, your commitment, and your willingness to embark on this journey of self-discovery, transformation, and manifestation. If anything you heard today resonated with you, sparked new insights, or brought about aha moments, I'd love to hear all about them. So please share your thoughts by tagging me on social media at Passion, Purpose, Passport, and follow me there for more inspiring content and connection. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and show your support by liking, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. The more good we share with the world, the more the universe unfolds its magic for us. It's not just good karma, it's the universal law, aka Manifestation 101. By the way, you will receive my free manifestation meditation as a token of gratitude for sharing your reviews on iTunes. Take a screenshot before submitting and send it to my team at manifest@passionpurposepassport.com. On that note, align your mind, body, heart, and soul with your deepest desires for limitless possibilities. Remember, every step you take, every action you choose, ripples through the universe, shaping the reality you wish to experience. Until next time, keep basking in the brilliance of your inner golden hour and keep manifesting miracles.